Hey guys, and boy, it's been a while since I did one of these. Now, I usually do these book reviews because it's a new book, usually that came out this year, that I would win in Goodreads giveaways, or if I really liked it from the library, then I'd review that. So, of course, this case again, I won this in a giveaway on Goodreads. My account is in the description below. Again, this is one of those advanced reader's copies where the book had not exactly been sold in stores yet, so this is technically one of the first copies to be ever released to some sort of public, but if you manage to win it, then technically it's yours. Actually, it took me a very long while to read this book, because I believe I got this at the beginning of this month, or towards the end of February, but I did not finish it until probably last weekend. For one thing, work has gotten in the way, and I barely had time to myself anymore. Secondly, I almost had the uncontrollable urge to not finish this. Why? Because I felt like the book was duller than my walls. You see how colorful, like, this, cover is? Well, do you see the color of the clothes of each of the characters that are on the book? My reaction to this book is more the color of these guys' clothes rather than the entire cover as a whole. But before I talk about its dullness, I do want to talk about the things that I do like, and before I get to that, I should basically describe to you what the book is about. So, Field Notes on Love is about two kids who are gonna go off to college soon, or who are coming of college age, named Hugo and May. Hugo got a really huge scholarship to this film school in California, because apparently they give out scholarships if you're a natural-born sextuplet, meaning 6 babies born at the same time. He is a child of 6 siblings who are basically the same age. And, I mean, I didn't know they have scholarships for this, but, I mean, this is fiction, so I'm really not gonna bother with it that much. And plus, I'm past the scholarship college era, in case you haven't noticed. So, the thing with Hugo is, he had a girlfriend of 4 years named Margaret Campbell. However, before he leaves for college, Margaret breaks up with him, and then he has an issue because they were going to go to California from New York together, and the tickets were in her name. So, he basically cannot force his now ex-girlfriend to go with him, and if he's not Margaret, then he's not gonna go. So he basically does this ludicrous thing, where he posts advertisements of, if your name's Margaret Campbell, and you're about my age, I don't think that's a thing, but it's, if your name's Margaret Campbell, then please come with me to California. Like, I promise you a good time, basically. I know it sounds creepy, but there you go. And then you get May, who, lives with her grandmother, who she calls Nana, and, 2 dads. Yeah, I know, LGBT represented in a romance novel, what a shocker. And, she wanted to go to film school, however, she got rejected from the one she wanted to go to the most, and I can't tell if she was also dating a guy who is going to that film school that she wanted to go to, because they sounded like they had a relationship and then they broke up, but I really could not tell. It was very ambiguous, and I kind of don't know why that scene was even there in the first place, but that's all in the beginning, so I'm not really spoiling anything for you. However, the thing is, May is actually short for Margaret, and her name is also Margaret Campbell. Shocker! So when she sees this advertisement of Hugo's saying, if your name's Margaret Campbell, I'll take you to California, or come to California for a trip, she was like, hex yeah! Because she knows the very famous film school that Hugo got a scholarship to is where she's going. I think it's San Francisco. And she's like, I'm gonna go there whether my dad's like it or not. And basically, she doesn't tell her dad that she's gonna go with some random stranger to San Francisco. She gotta wonder why. So they meet up, and the whole novel is basically them on this train from New York to San Francisco, and they decide that they're gonna do a film project where they're gonna interview these strangers on a train. And that's basically the book. And of course, if you haven't read the title yet, Field Notes on Love, this is a young adult romance, so you know something's gonna happen. Like, it really isn't a shocker at this point. Things that I do like about this book, and sadly they are kinda pretty minor, but they do make some huge of an impact. First of all, I think Hugo's interactions with his 5 other siblings is funny. I think that, like, there are parts of the book, especially in, there are 2 points of view in this book, of course. There's Hugo's point of view, and then there's, let me try to find it, or find something. Then there's May's point of view. I'm just gonna say it, I don't think the point of views were exactly necessary, per se, because it makes the chapters a lot shorter. I mean, there are a lot of them, and they make up a book that's like, I mean, for this copy in particular, almost 300 pages long, so that's fine. But Hugo's chapters, I think I could tell, are a lot longer, because I think he does interact with his siblings a lot more than he interacts with the surroundings, and in May's point of view, it's mostly her Nana and Hugo. I guess that kind of makes sense for the sake of their characters, but I just thought it was kind of weird that May's are a lot shorter because there's less to interact with, while Hugo has the group chat with his 5 siblings, and they talk about a lot of character depth for Hugo's sake, which I really, really liked. Because, first of all, you have a lot more characters he can talk to, and they tried to get him to think about what he wants, and they're like, oh, do you actually like May, or are you definitely using her at this point? Because Hugo would talk about her a lot and compare May to his ex-girlfriend, which, that was one of the problematic things I'm gonna talk about later. But, basically, you have the cattiness of the siblings, which I think is done quite naturally for this type of book, and I highly appreciated it. Second thing I liked, I think, well, the reason why I wanted to enter the giveaway for this book was I thought the concept, or the beginning of the plot, was pretty hilarious. Because it's like, okay, his girlfriend breaks up with him and leaves him with 2 tickets to San Francisco, but because they're not in his name, he doesn't know what to do. Coincidentally enough, he finds another Margaret Campbell, and they go on this trip together. And I'm like, that's fine. I think Margaret, first of all, is a pretty common name, and Campbell's a pretty common name, so I think that could pretty much worked out for itself. And I'm like, that's fine. This probably sounds like a cheesy, like, musical movie from the 1940s to the 1950s, but the concept still worked out, especially in modern times. And lastly, though very, very smally, I thought this was a nice touch, though kind of cliche. May and her Nana would talk about the story about how her Nana met her true love, I think her husband, on a train when Nana was May's age. And Nana's, like, when... Okay, I know I can't speak, but actually, May's Nana is the only person who May tells about this train because she knows that her Nana can keep a secret. And she keeps the secret alright. I'm not going to spoil why, but she kept the secret alright. And they would, of course, talk to each other about, like, romance and all the stuff that May kind of doesn't care about. But the story about her Nana meeting her husband on the train does come back in the plot of basically these two. And really, I'm not really spoiling anything because it's a romance, but the ending, I think, I'm not going to say anything about, unless you're really interested in reading this. The whole story thing of her Nana does come back, because I think you do see a lot of Nana in May, even though they are, like, generations apart, which I do appreciate. But then the rest of the book is kind of lackluster. Like, first of all, like I said earlier, Hugo is the only interesting character of this book. He gets more of the character development because he was the one who started this whole scheme, if you can even call it that, of taking a random girl named Margaret Campbell all the way across the country just to go to California so he can make it to this school. He basically does more of the learning here, and May is just flat out boring. Like, every time I read her chapter, I'm just like, I really wanted to skip through it, because she talks about the same exact thing. She doesn't really have too many aspirations, and it's... every time I get to her, I'm like, what's her point? Her point is just being the plot device for Hugo to get from point A to point B. Like, she does almost nothing else. She's almost like a doormat. Like, she wants to go to this school, but the rest of the journey, she's a doormat. And it makes me go to, like, her father's side of things, because, yeah, like, at one point of the book, they say, yeah, we would never have said yes either, but does May want actually anything? Do something, woman. Like, do something interesting. She doesn't. She just feels and follows wherever Hugo goes, and I'm just like I said, I wanted to drop this book a long time ago. But I kept reading it. I kept on choogling, because I guess I don't know why, I had nothing else to do. And I think that's the other thing, too. At some points of the book, I just wanted to skip right through it, but other times, I'm like, I think they just, like, repeat the same pattern of their daily lives over and over again, and I'm like, I know most of the time they're on a train, so there's, like, not really much they can do, except for, like, oh, they're in New York, they can do anything. They're in San Francisco, they can do anything. But being on a train, yeah, it's more limited of what they can do, but they're interviewing these people on this train, and there are probably a lot more people they can interview, and I don't think they did much interviewing. It's just mostly talking to their families or each other, and they're not really that interesting conversations unless you're Hugo here, who has like a early midlife crisis. Like, I'm not going to explain why, but he has some sort of crisis that I didn't even get. Just basically, maybe you can find more interesting things in this book than I can. I just found it to be incredibly boring and lackluster. It's like, I've read plenty of, like, modern love stories these days, and a lot of them, unless they're, like, romance novels from a non-white person's point of view, they're just straight up boring. It's like they try to make these characters, like, maybe way too realistic, and then you have the other side of the spectrum, they are not realistic at all. And I'm just sitting here like, do you adults know how teenagers think these days? Because you think we're brainless, emotionless, like, distracted by our cell phones, like, type of generation, and that's clearly not true. So, either way, if I could give this book a fair rating on a 1 to 5 scale, I'd probably give it a 2.5. You can get some humor out of this if you really could find it, but if you're going into, a story for depth, you're not gonna find it in this book. I'm sorry, you're just not. So if you guys liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button somewhere down below. And if you're interested in other content that I have, don't forget to subscribe and check out my channel. I'm Cait, and it's been real. Ciao!